Hey guys, welcome to the seventh podcast of the Blossom House. And today we're going to be discussing religion. And just a disclaimer, um, we don't want to offend anyone or anything like that. This is just some basic opinions. Um, so we're not going to be saying anything too discriminatory or anything like that. So it's just a open discussion um, where we're gonna voice our opinions. So let's start off with this simple and basic question: what is religion?
Okay, well, I could go for this one. More than just believing in a divine power or a god, which not all religions do, it's also a lot about a social structure and culture, just being with people, developing a sense of community, and it's also oftentimes there's a code of behavior. So there's certain ethics and morals that are in a religion that most people have to follow. um, a lot of the times too, in a lot of religions there's a lot of festivals, like um, for an example, in Hinduism we just had Holi, so lots of festivals like that, and a lot of this is to build community and it's to have a sense of belonging, especially since a lot of times we're so alone in life. It helps to have connections with other people.
Mm-hmm. I also think that religion is something that helps a lot of people cope. Um, so outside of just forming connections with other people, it's like a sense of like a belief in a higher power sort of thing, and that just makes people feel more secure and more comfortable to have something to believe in. So religion has a lot of power in that sense as well.
I also think that because there's so much we don't know about the world, like how did the world start, like what is after death, all of these unknown questions that no one can really give a definite answer to. Even science, sometimes people are a little bit skeptic on that. It helps to form some meaning in your life. For a lot of people, that's really comforting, and also to form a connection with the divine. Mhm. Maybe we can
And
talk. Oh, sorry.
yeah, go
Yeah, no,
ahead.
go ahead. You sounded like you're gonna continue
No,
with the
I
talk.
was gonna
Okay.
move the topic. So
Okay.
if you have something else to say, go
No, I was gonna move the topic. I was saying if we talk
ahead.
about religion, we should talk about the kind of not really the opposite, but the belief, atheism, that there isn't any God. If I got that
Mhm.
correctly.
I know there's like two things, right? There's being atheist and being agnostic, right?
Mm.
I'm not entirely sure what the difference is. I'm pretty sure one is like you don't believe in any god, but the other one is just like you don't believe or not believe in a god.
Yeah, like being agnostic means that you don't believe it's possible to know for sure that a God exists. And like basically, even if there is a God, you don't see like that much of the effect that they do have on your life. So you just don't care either way. At least that's my experience with it.
I see. One thing I want to bring up with atheism is I was reading up on this kind of sort of paradox. So say you have two people. This is I forgot the guy name of the guy who thought of this, but basically there's two people who are walking in a garden, and they're looking around at this garden, and one of the people are like, wow, this garden is really well taken care of, there must be a gardener here. But the other person is kind of skeptical, like, I don't think there's a gardener. So the other person who believes there is a gardener tries to prove that there's a gardener. So they're looking around for a gardener. They can't find a gardener. So he's like, oh, the gardener must be invisible. So they like do a bunch of other stuff, like they use thermal cameras, all this stuff to try figure out where the gardener is, but they're never able to find a gardener. So the skeptic asks the person who believes there's a gardener, if you can't really see or feel or like hear, like you can't smell this gardener, then isn't that kind of the same as my belief that I I don't believe that there's any there, but like you can't see that person, I can't see that person. So aren't we technically perceiving things the same way? We're just forming different interpretations on it. So that's kind of like how even though if someone is an atheist and someone is religious, they might end up having somewhat shared perceptions of how they see things, but they just like form different interpretations, if that makes sense.
Mhm. I think a lot about religion is that they're taking the same things that they see and then forming their own interpretations, right? Like, um, let's say Christianity and Hinduism, like they're both vastly different, right? But they're all built upon the same foundations of the world around us. We're just interpreting them in different ways. So there's that.
Mhm. Also, I wanted to add on, like, there's also many books on like atheist authors are writing to like prove how come they think like a god doesn't exist or why certain facts in religion aren't true. So I'm not trying to like diss their arguments or anything, but in my opinion, I think a lot of it sometimes doesn't work because they'll target a specific fact in a religion, but religion isn't necessarily always about the facts because it's more about how people interpret them. Different people will interpret different facts in different ways and they'll value some fact or truth above another. And that's why there's a lot of different forms of religion, like how you see in um, uh, Islam, like there's different, like there's Shias, Sunnis, they're different, right? So I think the interpretation is more important than the actual truth itself. So that's why I don't really buy into like going after a certain fact in religion because there's different interpretations.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Okay, this isn't like a concrete example, but if you've ever watched the show Lucifer, um, there's like a one scene where he asks like one of the other characters, forgot what her name was, but he basically asks her, if you had a chance to prove that all of it was real, would you take it? And she said no, because like to her it's more meaningful that she continues to um, find her own meaning and belief in something that she can't like see or prove than it is to have it all like true in front of her, right? So I think a lot of religion stems on the fact that you can't prove that it's real. Because once you prove it's real, it's like I don't know, it's almost like you're taking away the value of that religion because it's all stemming on the foundation that you're believing in something that you can't necessarily see or hear or touch, right?
Yeah, I think religion, not only is it just like about certain truths, but it's also about living those truths. It's a lot about being grounded in faith and just experiencing it. Like you go to, for me, like I'll go to a temple. Like it's not just like it's an experience because it's so pretty. Like it really evokes a certain kind of feeling that not it's just really hard to describe. Like it's part of that experience. Like it's not just like some concrete fact or anything, but also it, for a lot of people, it changes their lives, like how they live it. They live by this moral code, and it's kind of like it's called living theology. It's not just a set of like abstract ideas. They try to manifest it into a living reality where they try to help other people and they try to find meaning in their lives. I think that's why religion is super important to a lot of people. Oh, on the topic of meaning, we can also talk about absurdism and existentialism because those are two philosophical ideas. We learned about this in class last year that are really built on the fact that there isn't any inherent meaning in life. Rather, for absurdism, like anything you try to create, like whether it's religion or like um, theology, anything is just it. Any meaning you create is absurd. Like you're just creating meaning for the sake of having a meaning there. For existentialism, I don't remember if I remember this correctly, but I think it's that it's not outright rejecting that there's any meaning in the world, but you can create your own meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So those are definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was wondering like how you guys aligned with the two. Like,
Ooh.
do you think that there is meaning in life, or do you just think that like nothing matters? We're all going to die in the end. We're on a floating rock.
I mean, sometimes I like think about it, and it's like I feel like it's probably more comforting for people to believe that all their actions and the things that they're doing are all leading up to some sort of like important outcome, right? Um, and so in that case, it really depends because okay, so I know in like TOK and stuff, we always talk about what is it like determinism versus um like free will sort of thing, right? Um, and so to me, those ideas aren't always mutually exclusive. Like sometimes you'll want to believe that you have free will within your choices, but that your choices are ultimately leading up to something like good, right? And so that's like a mix of it. I don't know. I'm not really explaining it well. I haven't really thought about whether or not there's like a meaning in life. It's just more comforting to think that the things that I'm doing are leading in a good direction.
So basically, like existentialism and absurdism aren't exactly like incompatible as many would think, but like the fact that you can, I guess, choose your own meaning and create that in your own life doesn't take away from the fact that, like, um, in the bigger scheme of things, like in terms of the universe or whatever, it doesn't matter as much. Is that like what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, sort of. It's like I never really think of it on like a larger scale. It's more like in terms of my life, um, I would like to believe that I have a certain amount of free will, and to me, it doesn't really matter whether or not like there's a meaning to life or something like that. It's just like I would hope that the things that I do are towards something good, if that makes sense.
For me, I did actually have this is so embarrassing to say. I had like an existential crisis last year after reading The Outsider. I'm not even joking, guys. But I was like, because I was writing my higher level paper on absurdism and how it was seen in The Outsider by Albert Camus. Um, so I was just, it's so much more than just like thinking that there is no meaning in life. Like if there's no meaning in life, like everything you do, like your job, like everything it's useless, like all the societal things, like all the constructs, you see that everything is just some sort of make believe to play at meaning, but it's not true in any way, is what absurdism kind of is. And like all your life basically the only good thing I guess would be like enjoying the world around you. So it kind of threw me in for a loop because I always thought that like meaning in life was doing good for other people, but then I actually really started to question that, like how much of that is like ingrained in me as a child from being brought up with religion. And it's not a bad thing to believe that you should like serve your society, but I was just thinking a little bit more critically, like is that, does it always have to be for other people? Can you also do stuff for yourself? Like, and just really appreciating life more. Yeah.
Yeah. This is completely a throwaway, but your comment about like not caring less about doing stuff for other people and doing more stuff for yourself reminded me of this quote or like this post I saw on Instagram where it was like, um, stop being the bigger person, normalize like going completely off the rails whenever someone wrongs you. That was kind of funny.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, completely unrelated, very tangential. Um, we should definitely get back on topic.
What
If
was our
we
topic?
build off of what Shreya said about like how the things that you originally like were brought up with that sort of define the way you thought about the world for most of your life, right? I guess that's like contributes to like that's how religion contributes to a lot of people, right? Like what they're brought up around is the values that they're going to hold for most of their life until, if ever, something comes along that makes them question it. Like, I know, like, it's a lot different for people who aren't very religious. Like, am I follow Hinduism, right? That doesn't mean I necessarily like am very strongly attuned to it, right? Like, it's probably like a generational thing because I haven't really been brought up around the languages or like the practices too much. But like the things that I value aren't really stemmed off of my religion, but rather off of like the things I've watched or the books I've read or the people I've talked to, right? So it's like I'm making my own values rather than like a religion that's sort of helping me with it. So that's sort of where I'm differing from
Yeah, that's the same for me as well. Religion, I mean, it wasn't the biggest part of my life. Like, my parents are not, they believe in it, but we don't really practice it very often. So I think that's why I kind of like grew away from it, and I'm a bit more distant now, for sure.
Yeah, I'm like not religious at all. Like my parents also aren't religious, so the way I brought up was like I made it till fifth grade before I knew that religions existed. So yeah.
Okay, well, if we're on the topic of religion and like even with the outsider book, like when we talk about religion and related to crime and punishment, there's a lot of like connection there, like especially historically. So, will you guys have anything to say on
I think the interconnectedness between like religion being the basis of like um kind of dishing out punishment for crimes is like we've basically used religion as like a moral compass, I guess, for a really long time. And lots of like religious texts, right? They have like scriptures where they condemn certain things and basically are like, yeah, you can't do this. So yeah, I think that's why that like yeah, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. Actually, I was talking with this about my dad 2 days ago because one of our relatives passed away. So he was asking me, "What do you think happens when someone dies?" So we were having this discussion. He was providing me like the Hindu belief. So in Hinduism, the belief is that once someone passes away, they're not. It's the body dies, but the soul is still alive, and it reincarnate into the next body until finally it becomes pure enough to go to God. But I was arguing with him and saying that sure, I like totally your belief is valid, but I was thinking that if you're always like focused on your deeds and what you do in this life, doesn't that make it like, isn't that just really stressful? Like, it kind of devalues your life and just existing and appreciating all the good stuff around you. Like, if you're so focused on the afterlife, whatever that may be, if it exists, I don't know, but if you're so focused on that, does that take away from the value of your current life? Okay.
that?
Like, you're just not. I was like, oh,
I'd say
okay.
that sometimes it does. Like I know historically, like the idea that you might go to a bad place in the afterlife was used as a way to like make people follow a certain like role, like feudalism, for example. Like the reasoning was do these follow these set of rules, or else like you're going to hell, right? And I think even today, if we focus on the afterlife too much, um, we sort of forget like the importance of our life in the present. But I don't know, maybe for some people, the belief that like the things that they're doing in this life can help them in the next life makes them want to do better. I guess it's all up to like individual preference, I guess.
I'm gonna bring up a TV show now. So I was when I was talking about this argument, I was thinking about The Good Place. I don't know if you've watched it, but there's like one episode where basically a person is doing all this stuff to get into heaven, or the good place is what it's called in this show. But like I think from what I remember, it's like he wasn't really meaning any of it. Like it was just an act to do to get it over with so that he could go to this good place. But because he didn't really mean it from the bottom of his heart, he didn't actually get to the good place. So
Oof.
I know, like it kind of brings up the question, like, is what we do, like whether it's religion or whatever societal system, the values ingrained in us, is it just kind of like a habitual, like a habit we do, but we're not really consciously thinking about it, and we don't actually believe in it? I don't know what I'm asking actually. Like, do we think consciously about the actions we do and our morals and our ethics? Probably not constantly, because that's really annoying, but
Wait, so like, does wanting to do good deeds, not for the sake of doing good deeds, but for the sake of like,
simply doing
I
it.
guess, reaping the benefits of a reward
Yeah.
system, like make your actions disingenuous?
Yes. There
Like,
we go. You worded that nicely. Is it disingenuous?
okay. Um, I would say it doesn't matter. Like, if you do good things, the people around you are like, look, that person's doing good things. That's good. So,
That's
like,
good.
yeah.
Like, I agree with Emily. The way that I actually thought about this in middle school, because like we had this project where we were talking about like forced volunteerism, right?
Oh yeah.
Where like you're forcing people to volunteer. Um, and it's like it doesn't really make a difference because the people who you're doing good acts for still are affected the same way, no matter whether you chose to do it out of the goodness of your heart or whether you're doing it because I don't know, you need to fill in like community service hours or something, right?
Yeah.
Half
Um,
of it.
so like it's the same thing. It's the same effect either way. So I really don't think it matters unless it's like unless you're somehow thinking maliciously. I don't know. I can't think of any situation where you doing a good thing for the wrong reasons would be bad, right? Because no one does something like I would say most people don't do things because they're simply 100% thinking about like other people.
Mm.
You know, like there's like at least 1% of the things that you're doing because something is good for you, right? Like maybe it's like, oh, if I do this, then I can get into a good college. If I do this, I will like maybe I'll feel a little better after, you know? Like things like that. I don't think there's any human that will forever go around doing things selflessly because that's not how we're wired.
Mhm. I agree. I think.
Pessimistic eyes, but it's what I.
Yeah, I think it's true because like by giving people an incentive to do good, then like worst case scenario, they do good for the sake of like getting whatever benefits they're getting. But if they're doing it enough, then like for example, forced volunteerism, right? Maybe they can develop an interest in doing it, like actually start to genuinely like what they're doing without having to do it because they were forced into doing it. So yeah, I think there's really no bad thing about like forcing people to do good.
Unless the lie catches up with you. Unless you're a really good liar. Yeah.
Okay, if we circle back to the topic of religion, um,
Yeah.
so like we talked about why religion was so important in people's lives, right? Even historically, even now, it like brings people together, gives them something to believe in. But like historically, um, people have tried to sort of like replace religion because it was a very powerful force, right? They would try to replace it with their own sort of cult or group that promoted its own values. And so we saw it with like Robespierre in the French Revolution. Hitler tried it, things like that. But so, is there like a reason why those things didn't work?
I'm not too sure. I think a lot of it is because like religion was so deeply ingrained in the society, you can't just take it away in one day.
Mm-hmm. I
I
also think.
also
Oh
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. I also think it's because like a lot of aspects of religion, they're not as like concrete, right? They're more intangible. Whereas if you just like put Hitler in front of a crowd, everybody can see him, and that takes away some of the.
the
Hitler is not
divinity.
real.
Or if you put Robespierre, like if you see him jumping out of this
I was
thing
like,
for
that's
his
not
like
God. No way.
festival
He's
or
too
something,
short. I'm sorry, I would think that.
but yeah, you kind of see them for what it is, and it just takes away a bit of like that, I guess, intangibleness, right? Which doesn't let you add as much of your own interpretation to it, which I think is like a really important part of religion, right? Forming your own interpretations from like a prescribed religious text.
And since these
Mhm.
people were dictators, they didn't really allow for interpretations. So it makes it hard.
Mhm.
What were you gonna say,
Um,
Suti? Go.
no, Emily said it.
Oh, lol.
But on the topic of like, what was it? Interpretations of religion. There are lots of interpretations of religions. Like, okay, I'm gonna get this wrong because I can't remember the exact terminology. But like, there's what is it? Is it within Catholicism? Oh my god, I'm gonna get this wrong. I'm so sorry for anyone who is this. But like under Catholicism, is there not like different versions? I don't know anything.
I wouldn't know
The
either.
Protestantism and like Christianity. I straight up cannot remember which one's which.
I'm pretty sure
But like there's
Christianity is
different
like the umbrella
versions
term for
within
everything.
what? Sorry.
Like Christianity, right? And there's that. There's like Protestant, Catholic,
Yeah.
Anglican question mark. Yeah,
Hmm. So
but
wait,
like
so what about it?
Catholics and Protestants are different, I
Oh,
think.
well, yeah,
So we'll figure it out.
they are. I think
They are, yeah.
probably. I don't want to offend anyone. Oh my goodness. Oh, speaking of, Sweetie reminded me. So I was doing my extended essay. It was pretty related to
Yeah.
religion as well. One of the authors, John Donne, he converted from Christianity to Protestantism. This was around the time of the Protestant Reformation. So a lot of people, including him, the poet, he was undergoing like a lot of stress because he wasn't even sure if God like really existed. I wouldn't say he was like really uncertain like what happened after death. He was conflicted about a bunch of religious topics and whether God really loved him or not. So it was really interesting to see that religion isn't always it can also be very conflicting for a lot of people because there are times when you question your values and beliefs, like are these really true, and that can be really just it's hard on a lot of people. Wait, sorry, what topic were you on? I went off topic.
Are you talking to me or Emily?
Both of you. There's two of you.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't be
I
able to
was sort
tell
of.
Oh, we
you.
were talking about cults. Talk cults.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait. Okay, I remember where I was going with it. Okay, so in terms of like, there are different interpretations of religions, right? And like, just um, like for example, Robespierre tried to use religion in his own way to like push out his own values and stuff in order to control people. We also see a line, a connection in modern times between religion and terrorist groups, right? Um, so, do you guys have any thoughts on
Um, Okay, so from what I know, a lot of the times, like terrorist groups will use certain like tenets from a religion, but they'll really twist it to fit a certain narrative. And a lot of the times, they'll like target uneducated people who really don't know any better and don't really have any hope for a better future, but they use it and then propaganda like make it sound really good. Like this will give you a better life, it'll help you go to heaven, something like that, right? And then indoctrinate basically a bunch of people. So that's an example of, yeah, religion being twisted very, very wrong. Also for cults, a lot of the time cults, like it'll be a really, I don't even know if it's religion at that point, like you're like twisting it so much, or you're even like making up your own religion. I think for a lot of
Mhm.
cults like that, um, cult mentality is definitely really interesting. It's like one person knows, a few people know what's going on. The rest of them are completely unaware of the outside world.
that? Yes,
Yeah.
our BCA exec tell us about cults.
I don't even know too much about cults. I've been because I've watched so many videos on cults that I can't name any of them anymore because they're just blurred in my head. But like a lot of time,
Just
okay,
casually, I just watch a lot of cult videos, guys.
okay, no, it's not even called like crime videos. I'm very interested in them. I'm not a freak, but anyways, I was like all the time, like there will be like a head honko sort of guy, girl, whatever. Like they're ordering
Had
their
what?
mini. The head honko, is it not honko? Is it
I've never
honcho?
heard that word before.
Wait, is it
Head
head hon?
honcho,
Oh, I said head
head honcho.
honko. Whatever. Anyway, so the head honko, right? Basically, this person will like order the rest of the minions to do a certain thing, and then the people won't go against them because they don't know any better until they are somehow exposed to the outside world. So it's also another. It's kind of like religion in the sense that you really. What is that? Oh, your brother. Okay. Anyways, so like you really buy into it, and there's a certain sense of values and beliefs, but it's not for the good in this case, right? Because you're doing bad against other people, and it's also bad for you because you're so isolated. That's what I know about
Hmm.
cults. That's a really bad description. Sorry.
I guess like cults and
Terrorist groups,
terrorist
I guess too.
groups, like you said, they target people who are like alone, people who are don't necessarily have other people or other connections in the outside world that they can reach out to
Mm.
help them, and so they're really only relying on this one thing that is like to help them. I don't know if I can't remember where we saw this video. It might have been grade 11 COK, but the one video where there was like a boy
Mhm.
like in a family, a normal family, but he was like, I guess he was feeling isolated and alone, and he saw videos on his phone of like terrorist propaganda, and that sort of prompted him to get a gun and then like go out and try to shoot people, right? Um, and so there's also this idea where these groups can also target like kids or people with family, but that feel so isolated that this sort of like um, this sort of propaganda and um, hope for like a different reality sort of gets to them.
Interesting. Cults and terrorist groups. Yes, not great. I can't help but laugh. This is so funny. I'm so sorry. Okay, yes. I did have something to say again on cults and terrorist groups, but I forgot. Okay, this is a mess.
Okay, well,
Sorry, I forgot we were recording.
That was wild. Oh.
okay, so we've covered sort of the importance of religion in our lives, but we've also
yeah.
covered different types of religion, and we've covered some maybe ways that religion can be used against us or in ways where it might have harmful effects on us. Do you guys have anything else to add before we close off for today?
I'm so sorry. I think we should close off before Emily kills her brother or her brother kills Emily.
Okay, well, thank you for tuning in to our podcast on religion. Apologies for the mess near the end. Um, Tune in next time for our next podcast.
I can't breathe.
Bye.
Bye. Emily says bye too.